So far, we've explored the national snapshot about Kenya, exploring the rich diversity, our unique landscapes, and the natural national assets that we have in ecosystems. In Chapter 2 or Episode 2, we explored further how people and practices look like, the real case for lives and livelihoods in Kenya, the opportunities across ecosystem services, tourism, pastoralism, and really the indigenous and traditional knowledge. And now we dig deeper to actually see what the real manifestations of climate change are in Kenya. Kenya has been facing a myriad of effects, from heat waves to droughts, erratic rainfall, floods, name them all. These are just but some of the few examples on how Kenya has been grappling with the impacts and the effects of the climate crisis. We are seeing cases where flooding has led to loss of livelihoods, livestock, and destruction of property across Kenya. And in recent flooding events in 2021 and even last year, we've seen food insecurity being a key consequence in this country, the locust invasion being a case in point in Kenya that hit across the Eastern African region and risks the food security and food sovereignty in our region. We are seeing cases of climate migration. People are moving in and out of cities to look for better opportunities, but also to move to higher grounds, to run away from either flooding or drought, or to get more opportunities because they cannot grow food in the rural center, they cannot practice farming, they cannot do rural-based activities. And so there's a lot of bulge from rural areas to urban areas. We are seeing destruction of infrastructure, roads being carried away by floods, and these are so costly to our GDP, to our national economies. So without proper checks, a lot of the farmers, a lot of the people, a lot of the jobs are being out of form. We're also seeing consequences in the health sector, for instance with heat waves, with flooding, skin diseases as a result of heat waves. Waterborne diseases are also a manifestation of flooding that will result in pollution of waters, open defecation, therefore bringing cases of cholera and the likes. And so with all these, many communities, and especially the most vulnerable and poor communities in Kenya, are going to really be impacted negatively and suffer dire consequences, most of which they cannot cope to, most of which they cannot build resilience to, most of which they cannot have the financial muscle and capacities to either build resilience and live within. In food systems, you're seeing the erratic rainfalls, but also the degradation of our landscapes, leading to soils not being arable, leading to many areas being desert-like, and the semi-arid and arid ecosystems further expanding. And so that means we are in potential exposure to food insecurities. And how are our seed banks going to be protected if the destroyed soils cannot even produce enough for us, if we are pumping a lot of the chemical fertilizers into our soils? And yes, now we cannot predict our seasons. Farmers can know how and when to plant what and when they expect to harvest. And even when they plant it, they cannot be sure on the quantity of the harvest because, alas, there is lots of infestations by diseases. There is heat waves, there is droughts, the water is scarce, noting that Kenya is one of the countries globally having water scarcities. And even though we have Lake Victoria Basin, which is Africa's largest freshwater lake, we still don't have enough water to sustain our communities, to provide water for our livestock, and to even irrigate our farmlands. And so the question is, what can be done? There's action that is needed in terms of restoration. We need to actually have early warning systems for the cases of heat waves and flooding and even droughts, with proper technologies and proper early warning systems. Through institutions like the Kenya Meteorological Department, we can actually help address this thing and understand when some of these calamities that hit the country, put in place proper financing, cushioning, ensure that when the disasters hit, our communities are better prepared, and if not well prepared, they can get the aid, the technological support, and the financial resources to be able to navigate the chaos and really build resilience against it. We also need to have serious investment in research, because the truth is, Kenya having a large proportion, over 80% of our lands being in the arid and semi-arid landscapes, more arable land will not be available in this century. So with increased climate change, we need them to diversify on what drought-resistant crops and seed varieties we can really invest into research and bring into our communities. We need to understand what key indigenous seeds we can secure and help protect, store, and create seed banks for our countries, for our communities, and for our people to be able to use them and grow in their farmlands. We need to have serious weather forecast so that the farmer understands how and when to plant and grow their crops, how and when to transport and store their crops, and what strategies they can put in place to actually protect the food that they produce for us. And finally, we need to invest and know that there is power in indigenous knowledge and indigenous food production systems. If we can tap into this potential and engage our traditional leaders, our elders, our communities at the grassroots, we can help identify some of the working practices and pass them to the next generation and involve them in our national strategies to combat the climate crisis and ensure we have strong food policies, food systems transformation, and actually impacting our communities with this knowledge and wisdom that can guide us to address these grappling impacts and effects of the climate crisis.